Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Aliens and UFOs video. Alright, continuing the theme associated with detailing some scary and unique encounters that people have had with aliens and UFOs. I thought I would continue that here. The first video that I did got some good number of views. It's still getting some good views along with some good likes and comments. So it definitely seems like a popular theme. In this case, it's going to be 3 encounters that I'll talk about here. One of them a super long detailed one. So those of you that like those long stories, you're definitely going to have a treat here. And then 2 shorter ones, but all of them having to do with some very unique encounters. And once again, it's coming from the reddit.com website, from the subreddit called The Truth Is Here. So let's go ahead and let's share the first one here. It's simply titled, I Met Them, and it comes from the user by the name of Definitely Not OP. So here's essentially what they have to state. I'm using a throwaway account because I just want to see if anyone else has had the experience or one like it. I don't care whether y'all believe it or not, but I understand most won't. It's probably going to be long. So this happened to me in July this year, and I've been thinking about it constantly since. I'm trying to sum up the experience as best as I can. So I'm kind of a mentally ill weirdo. I have BPD and CPTSD, and I'm a 24-year-old girl who lives alone in the city, just minding my own business. I have a few friends, but I am not close with my family, and so it's not unusual for me to go a few weeks or months without really seeing anyone besides my coworkers, especially during a globalized pandemic. So I've just been doing my own thing. This encounter happened during one of those few weeks of stretches of isolation. I'm only giving this bit of exposition so people can understand my psychiatric history as well as my mental state, etc. So the start of July, I got this uncontrollable impulse to go camping and stargaze. I never go camping alone, haven't been in around 4 years, and had no camping stuff whatsoever. But I wanted to go for some reason. So I researched some good dark sky spots in Utah, found a cute little campground about 4 hours into the desert, and reserved the last spot available for a week out from that day. I bought all my stuff the day before and then just drove out. I'm horrible at planning and time management, so by the time I arrived at the campground, the sun was already going down. I had also forgotten my charger and realized I had to make my 60% battery last until I can make it back to the city the next day. There was no service out there, so that seemed easy enough. My entire goal was to chill in my hammock chair all night and stargaze anyway, so all I needed was some music for that. I specifically chose the night of a new moon for this, so I knew I had to get my tent set up and situated as soon as possible before the sun went down. There are a lot of others here, but most are families with kids getting ready for bed. I could hear parents reading scripture to their kids before bed and could see others reading on Kindles and stuff before going to sleep. So by this time, everything is set up. It's about 10 p.m. Everyone almost at once turns their lights off and passes out. This really weirded me out at first because it was the perfect night for stargazing. I didn't see a single other person setting up a chair to stargaze, any telescopes, or even just someone outside of their tent looking up. Everyone was either already asleep or going to sleep. So I gave it some more thought and figured they all probably just want to wake up before or with the sunrise, because here we are in the desert. Sleeping in wouldn't exactly be a pleasant experience when you're getting cooked alive, I imagine. And I work night shifts, so staying up was not an issue for me in the slightest sense. So at this point, the only people I can see that are awake are myself, this family at the campground vaguely near me reading scripture, and a whole mess of people at the bathroom. My tent is located at the far side of the campground, so to my left there's nothing but desert and cliff, and in front of me is the bathroom about 100 feet or so away, 2 other campgrounds around 300 feet away, and more desert sky. And then to my right and behind me is the rest of the campground. There's another bathroom on the far side of the campground behind me to my right, which is probably 700, 900 feet away. These 2 bathrooms are the only source of any light in the campground, aside from a few people who are using their flashlights to come to and from the bathroom. Like I said earlier, I'm a weirdo. I won't deny that, which makes honestly telling this story to others hard. So my goal out here was to grieve and to move on from a lot of loss I experienced a year ago. I had a lot of bad stuff happen in my life, and I lost a lot of loved ones as a result. Sometimes a good mushroom trip will really help one find a lot of closure when it comes to grief. So that was my only goal this trip. So I ate around 2 grams and was coming up around 11 p.m. Now hear me out here. What kind of effing close encounter story can be believed when the person telling it was under the influence of a psychedelic? You might be asking yourself. That's a pretty good question, and I would say that being skeptical of a person's experience under the influence of such drugs is common sense. That being said, I want to say I have a gross amount of experience with psychedelics. Some trips are even weirder and more isolated places like this. I've tripped on mushrooms easily dozens of times in my life, and on acid probably over 100 times. And I have kept tons of trip journals and have recordings from these trips and so on. Never once has anything like this happened to me before or since. I have never seen things while tripping, have never interacted with entities, have never had bad thoughts or paranoia about something being there that's not. I always have the same trips, which is some textures get wavy, my emotions become full and bright, and then I feel at peace in my mind for those few hours. That's it. I'm convinced that what happened to me in the desert was not a product of these drugs, but merely really what happened to me while I was tripping. It would have been the same had I not been on the psychedelic drugs, in other words. But that's just my opinion. I definitely do invite skepticism otherwise. So yeah, I'm coming up and I'm ready to stargaze, but now I gotta go pee. And all these people hanging out around the bathroom are making me nervous. No one else is awake that I can see now. No lights are on or tents open anywhere around me. The only people awake are all over by the bathroom. I usually cave and just head over and do my own thing. No one bothered me or said anything to me, luckily. And so I started walking back over to my chair. So my spot is pretty close to the bathroom, and I can walk from the front of it in a straight line in the dark, and I will, without fail, hit my tent after about 25 seconds of walking. Because this is easy, I don't even bother whipping out my flashlight to get there. Plus, it saves on my phone's battery for the drive out, as that is still my priority anyway. And so I'm walking through the dark when I see the outline of my hammock chair and a person standing right next to it staring at it. And so I freeze and I stare at them. I'm super confused as to why this person is in my camp spot, standing alone in the dark, just staring at my chair. Maybe they're curious about it. I don't know. It's weird as blank. And so I wave at them, but they don't notice. So I move a little closer, and I guess the sound of my footsteps alerted them to my presence, because they shot their head up way towards me, took around 3 steps in my direction, then backed up about 6 steps, flashed a bluish flashlight in my eyes, and then fast walked away from me towards another person I hadn't noticed, either standing in the dark around 15 feet from us. Both of them standing next to each other were shining their blue flashlights at their feet, and they both moved around towards the bathroom and then disappeared into the girls' restroom. This is weird, right? I thought so, standing there all terrified like a dumb person. I rationalized that the first person must have been waiting for their friend to catch up on something. And so I sit down and finally put on some good music in my headphones and just melt into the beautiful show playing into the sky above. And so now it's around 11:30 to midnight, and there's still people around the women's restroom. It's actually just really distracting at this point and bugging me out a lot because it's right in my line of sight. They just keep waving their flashlights around and coming in and out, but they never seem to go anywhere. They will walk out of the restroom, turn their lights off, and then just walk into the dark without their lights to guide them. They usually will either walk behind the bathroom where I can't see them, or off to the left side into the dark where there are no camp spots. And so I notice someone is now standing next to me. I tear my headphones out and shoot my head to the right. There is a silhouette of a person standing about 7 feet away from my chair. I am frozen and spooked pretty bad. They take around 2 steps towards me, then back up again around 6, and then walk around me and away into the dark with no flashlight, and this is away from me and then towards the bathroom. Now I'm effing spooked. I don't think it's anything supernatural right now, but I definitely think it's some people up to no good. The nearest city is hundreds of miles away, and we are far from any civilization out here. If these were people trying to hurt me, they could do it rather easily. And so I stay in my chair for now, but I keep my headphones off so I can hear the environment around me. My head is now on a swivel, but I'm still trying my best to enjoy the night. And so now it's midnight and no one else is awake. No flashlights anywhere, no voices, nothing. All the bathroom people finally vanished and it was just me awake as far as I could tell. And so with my headphones off, I started to notice sounds now. The sound of a jet somewhere near would come and go, flying somewhere in the desert. I kept looking for its aircraft lights, but I could never find them. And this deep, almost physics-defying boom would occasionally shake the desert, but in a weird way. When I heard and felt it, I could feel my body tense and then shake up with it and the air too, but never the ground. It's weird because it sounded as if it was coming from the ground itself, not the air. I would hear what also sounded like laughter coming from the desert to my left, and this was the portion of the desert with no camp spots or people. I'm still at this point just chilling. I've obviously started to suspect some weird blank, but for the most part, I'm chilling and enjoying the night. And then the orbs in the sky. I practically blanked myself when I saw this. Above one of the cliffs, far out on the horizon, there was this little swarm of glowing orbs that had appeared and they were almost dancing around one another. I remember this moment very, very clearly. I remember seeing them thinking, I can't explain that. What the F is that? There's nothing I could imagine that could move like that, not even drones. I won't record this, I promise. I won't ruin it. I just want to see it through. And that's what I was thinking. I remember thinking that was the last part very clearly out of nowhere and thought it was weird how it was just in my mind. I hadn't even thought to record it in the first place as I had just noticed it, but here I was making a promise to myself that I wouldn't even try no matter what would happen. And so another cluster of orbs appears in the sky to my right, and almost simultaneously the orbs to my left instantly shoot across the sky and then join the other orbs. And so I start smiling like a blanking idiot. This is it, the thing I have been staring at the sky looking for my whole goddamn life. The thing I stopped believing in for decades because I never saw it. I had let the world convince me that it was just as boring as it appeared. I never once allowed myself to think it could actually be more than that. And the proof of it was finally effing staring me at the face. I had to keep checking with myself, being like, this isn't the mushrooms, right? No, it's definitely not. I see that. I'm not hallucinating. And it's probably one of that little personal questions to close to a dozen times over the course of the next few months. I was seeing it. And so the jet sound comes back and it's much louder now. And I actually see the aircraft lights now too flying directly overhead, but they aren't blinking like usual. They fly into this dark cloud in the sky that I hadn't noticed before and vanish along with the jet sounds. And so the orbs continue playing with each other until they vanish too. All in all, I'd say this lasted for about an hour. And so now it's around 1 a.m. and I really got to effing pee. I obviously hold it as long as I can because I'm witnessing the single most special thing I'll ever get to see right in front of my eyes. But eventually I break and just want to get it over with. So I'm a trans woman. I wouldn't even bring that up if I didn't have some sort of relevancy to the story, to be honest. I look and sound exactly like a girl. It's pretty much impossible for people to tell that I'm not cis, and I haven't been clocked in a long time, but I still have a penis. I'm out here in the blanking desert on shrooms witnessing some high strangeness, but I still got to be careful of what bathroom I use. So normally I would just use the girls' bathroom, but those people I encountered earlier were still making me paranoid. So I figured if worse comes to worse, I'd rather be caught in the men's in case there are some weirdos out here. And so I head in there and I'm doing my thing at the urinal as fast as possible. I zip down and start going. And the effing goddamn moment I start at doing this, the door to the restroom shoots open and some guy with short brown hair, around 5'6", and a half-sunken droopy face runs in, eyes glued to the ground, and barges right into the stall next to me, shutting the door and then doing his business. The only word I could use to describe him was that he looked quote unquote sick. This obviously scares the blank out of me. It's like 1 a.m. and I haven't seen another human being in a few hours, and I just saw this light show in the sky, and I'm a cis-looking girl peeing, standing up at a urinal, and now I'm alone with this dude. He pees, for no joke, for 3 seconds. That's it. All that rush, all that urgency for 3 seconds of tinkle time. Who does that? He spent the rest of his time in there slowly pulling out toilet paper from the roller for some reason. I'm a dumb bee and just held my bladder for way too long. So I'm trying my effing best to just get it all out so I can leave, but it's taking forever. And so I finally finish and for some reason go to wash my hands. I don't know why. It just felt like the right thing to do in the moment. And so once I do that, this guy shoots out of the stall again way too hard and way too fast, comes in right next to me at the sink, washes his hands for a total of 2 seconds, and then leaves the bathroom as fast as he entered. I'm kind of shook, but again, I'm trying to rationalize this. I just think he's probably tripping too, and the sight of some girl peeing at the urinal at 1 a.m. probably made him think I was an alien too. So I head out and back to my chair, and the moment I sit down, the lights in the bathroom I was just in shut off all at once. The lights in the girls' bathroom and the boys too. No one enters or leaves either, and now just a single tiny yellow bulb can be seen glowing above a park ranger's bulletin board on the side of the building. And so I sit down and almost kind of invite more weird blank to happen around me. These jets are back now and louder than before. There are also orbs now huge right around the campground. They're pulsating and glowing and others dimming, slowly drifting away. I'm terrified, but also I can't move. It's too effing cool. That's really the whole reason I didn't hide in my tent. I mean, who the F in their right mind would listen to their instinct to run when you could see how far it could go? And so I hear weirder sounds coming from the deserts, what sounds like shouting and a baby crying far, far away. The orbs reappear in the sky, and then behind the trees next to my tent, it looks like the moon is shining through, but it's a new moon. And so now it's 2 a.m. The bathroom lights come back on, but only the lights in the men's restroom. The women's restroom remains off, and I see no one come and go. At this point, the only thing that can be heard coming from my mouth the past little bit is, I'm a dumb bee. Why am I doing this? This is terrifying, and then I'm just dumb for letting it all happen. I'm very aware of my desire to run and give in to the fear, but that is highly outweighed by my curiosity. At least it was. And so a person who comes from seemingly nowhere, no flashlight on and no clear intention of direction, walks in front of the bathroom, and it's terrifying. Normally, that ain't effing scary. It's just some person. But like, this person was easily 10 to 13 feet tall, and the bathroom itself was around 13 feet tallish, and this person walking in fronts headward was at mid-level with the top ventilation window, and then the crown of their head was taller than the building itself. They walked in front of the restroom and into the dark, and I shot out of my chair. The only thing I said was, nope, 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 nope. That's my line. F you, that's terrifying. Nope, effing nope, or something like that. As fast as I could, I ran into my tent and quickly zipped it up. There was no not running at this point. My sympathetic nervous system was just over and very animate, and I needed to effing hide. It's hard to describe what I felt, but it was the most primal fear I've ever felt. I have BPD and CPSTD, or CPTSD, so I'm used to feeling a stagger amount of terror in my mind on a daily basis when my symptoms show up. But this was on a whole other level. It was like some deep animal part of me understood the moment I saw them that I was no longer at the top of the food chain. Another ultra predator, much smarter than me, has just made itself known, and my body was tending up like a wild animal at the sight of it. I truly felt humbled and small at the moment, and knew I was outmatched. They were now outside my tent and were scurrying non-circles around it. The sound of their footsteps gave away into the feeling of their voice playing side by side and my own inner voice. And this is where it gets hard to explain. We talked, but talking is not the right word for it. They communicate in pure concept and feeling. And it's so subtle, instantaneous, it's hard to describe how obvious it is, while at the same time being so subtle as to somewhat be indistinguishable from your own thoughts or feelings. The things we talked about were rather personal, so I won't go into much detail. I asked them about the jets, whether that was us, and if we were trying to find them. They said yes. I thought we aren't smart enough to find you guys. They said no, you are smart, you just aren't creative. They said they are scared of us too, but are much more aware of us than them. They want to know us more, but it's hard. Too much complication. It cited me running and hiding as proof. I said that's natural. I'm still an animal with a nervous system hardwired towards survival. Something new and unknown is going to do that to people no matter how rational they try and stay. They said they liked me because I was honest about fear. They were scared too. They wanted freedom. They want that for us too, but they aren't quite sure what to do, or at least they wouldn't tell me. Whether I would ask their name or why they were here, they would deliberately ignore me. They also seemed to get a kick out of effing with me, also citing that as a reason for this. They did one thing that I really liked, and it was show me that they have always cared and always will. It's hard to describe the feeling they gave me, but it was really unconditional love. They called me family and kept expressing their love for me and told me that I chose this. I didn't get that part all too well. When they said that to me, all these memories flooded in from my childhood, but I'm still struggling to draw any connections. After a while, of course, I had to finally pee again. I did, and nothing happened. I went back into my tent to eat some trail mix and to record an audio recording of what we just talked about so I could remember as much as possible. And I noticed the time on the phone said something like 11 a.m. My phone has never messed up like that before and changed the time on me. It was a little validating to see, to be honest. It was clearly the middle of the night, not 11 a.m. And so I left the tent, and they asked with me some more orbs in the trees, lights going off in the bathroom, etc. Eventually 5 a.m. hit, and they were gone. The sun came up, and I headed home. There's a lot of details I skipped over as this post is already way too long, but there you have it. Like I said, I don't expect anyone to believe me. I invite the skepticism honestly, as I was under the influence of a psychedelic substance. I do have to say, out of the hundreds of trips I've had, I've never experienced something like this before or since. I truly believe that these events happened and that the drugs were not responsible for their inception whatsoever. What to take away from it? I don't know, to be honest. It was amazing, and I want to meet them again. I'm extremely humble now, and I believe in other beings again, and have this sense of family and home in myself I've never had before. Has anyone out there met them too? I'd love to hear your story if so, and to let you know you aren't alone in your experience. They are out there, and they do exist. And that's pretty much it. That's everything that this user has to say. This user definitely not OP about their experience. Very long story, but very detailed. Lots of stuff to talk about. First off is the idea that this happened out there in a campground, which reminds me of a location, Palmetto State Park, that's near Gonzales, Texas, that has similar UFO sightings. It too is a campground. It's a place that I've been toying with going, and it might go as in the ghost group that I'm in too, because out there people do see UFO sightings along with ghosts and Bigfoot as well. So it reminded me of that when I was listening and hearing to this story, as far as the information of this user. What do you guys think too about those strange people that this person kept seeing by the bathroom? They were there. They were not using flashlights in the total darkness. They were at an area where there wasn't any more, let's say, places to do a normal campground and such. It was just pure by the foresty location by the actual bathroom itself. And then, of course, things took a much weirder turn whenever this person that she described as being sick suddenly appeared in the bathroom along with her out of nowhere. In fact, several encounters of her having these things all of a sudden be by her location out of nowhere, and then it all culminated with a 13-foot tall thin creature or thin man all of a sudden be at that bathroom location. I could totally sense why that was the big nope when it comes to finally just getting out of there. But what a strange way that things turned, right? All of a sudden, once she was about to leave, that's when these things started communicating with her maybe in her mind, maybe another way, letting her know that it's okay. Obviously that they were there messing with her, as she said, during the night. They wanted her attention. They got it. And then now they were able to talk with her in this. What do you guys think? Is this true? Is this something that really happened to her? Or is the big skepticism that she was on several grams of a psychedelic drug, was that playing something into effect? I gotta admit, it's kind of hard to not rule any of the information out. They're called psychedelic drugs for a reason, right? It reminded me of one of the videos that I did years back. I think they were called the DMT machines. It's about these beings, these things that people see when they take certain drugs. And when that happens, they start seeing these beings out of thin air. They see these beings and these beings see them, and then they start interacting with them, and it's only through that drug. And so I'm wondering if that's the situation here. But I'd love to hear where your comments are with regards to that. Plus, if anyone has been there at Palmetto State Park, if that's something that's really worthy going to. Now, the next story is associated with this. It comes from a user called 6Elisor. I hope I'm saying that correctly. 6Elisor. And theirs is a lot shorter, but it's called Our Strange Experience. Here's what they state. My fiance and I decided to get some food and go to the beach one night. We got our food, got to the beach, and then ate in the car. This was about 12:14, and so we left. Now, my fiance's home is no more than 5-minute drive from where we were. Small town, no traffic. We get there, and after a minute or so, I say, that's weird. I don't remember driving back. I must be tired. And so he says, I don't remember the drive back either. He then made some joke about aliens and memory loss and laughed for a second, which gave me the chills for some reason, but we both kind of brushed it off. And so we checked the time as we head in, 12:45, an extra 20 to 25 minutes that neither of us remember, but don't really think too much about it at first. We started getting ready for bed, and I was questioning our time loss while also trying to make jokes of it. And I'm on the bed, and as he goes to turn out the light, there's a slight vibration in the house. And then the noise started. It was like a humming/ringing, unlike anything either of us have ever heard. It felt like it was coming from above us, but it was also surrounding us. It was like something was right above the house. It's hard to explain. And so we froze in fear as soon as we heard it. I called his name multiple times to get home to come to me because I was terrified. He asked if I could hear it too, and I said yes. It felt like forever, but it really probably only lasted 30 seconds. And so I got the chills when I think about the noise, that moment. My body was literally shaking in fear that night in bed. It's been 2 months now, and it's something that I can't stop thinking about. The following day, my fiance said he doesn't want to remember that night or even acknowledge it happened. He says he is scared and wants to pretend nothing happened. I'm also terrified, but I wish I knew the truth about that night. And then that's pretty much it. That's everything that this story, this short and sweet story entailed, but still lots of good stuff to talk about. Here we have what's the first time that I'm talking about in this encounters on these videos with regards to memory loss or time loss. There's obviously the Barney and Betty Hill is the most famous example associated with the time loss, and the idea that it was only later on under hypnosis that they realized what happened. Here, this happened to this person, that person and their fiance. They had about 20-25 minutes lost between them that they still don't know what it's about, but almost seem to not want to know what it's about, especially after having that really scary experience of this UFO, if it even was that, hovering above their house. I love the visage of it, the idea that this thing was out of sight, but they obviously knew that something was above their house, something big, because the fact that it was vibrating the whole house, as they described it, as if it was surrounding them, it would only be from something very large. And then there it was, too much of a coincidence after their memory loss to be, let's say, right there at their house or above them. So what happened to them? What do you think? Was it just they can't remember 20-25 minutes for some reason out of the blue, or was it really something else, like some kind of abduction of some sort that the aliens took away the memory of, and then here they are, the aliens paying one last visit above their house, and then that's it. Pretty freaky stuff. So last one that I want to talk about is also a short one. It comes from the user called Keeping Things CV, and it's called The Bedroom Visitor. So here's what they state. I had this experience about 2 years ago. I did not think to write it down simply because I did not think much about it, and there was much story to it in general. Some may argue that this experience was sleep paralysis, but I strongly disagree. It was very real. So I was able to move and everything during this strange encounter. So normally the experience I've had in this house have been of the ghostly variety. Nothing majorly noteworthy, but if there is interest, I can make a separate post for that as well. This was definitely not that though. It started with me waking up in the middle of the night to my pet rats squeaking. I assumed, of course, that they were playing and one got upset at the other, so I sat up. I turned to my right to investigate their cage, which is quite close to my bed, only to see something I never expected. It was a creature that I've seen and heard of from others, but never thought I would see myself. It was about 3 feet tall, based on my rat's cage that it stood next to, which is about 6 feet tall. It had a large, bulbous head, dark gray skin, and big eyes. I knew it was a gray quite quickly. His skin seemed so smooth, with no flaw in his flesh at all. It even had a slight pearlescence to it that shined in the moonlight that peeked through my blinds. His eyes did not have a pupil, at least not that I could tell. They were also gray. I think they were like a tinge of green. And there were these strange squiggles and specks in the eyes, almost reminding me of space itself. And then nothing happened. Or rather, I woke up the next morning. I'm almost certain he made me go back to sleep. I'm not sure who he was interested in, me or my rats. They were just fine when I checked on them the next morning. No one was missing, and I didn't feel different myself. I know this is a short story, but like I said, not much did happen. I didn't feel like I was in danger, but still, I wonder what that was about in general. Sometimes I wonder if creatures like that just know you're interested in them. I think that may have been why I saw one. Thank you for reading my short story. I know it's not exciting as some others, but it's been churning in my brain for quite some time now. And then that's it. That's everything that this user has to state. So, lots of good stuff to talk about. Here, in this case, one of the first sightings, or one of the first encounters with a gray here on my channel when it comes to these encounters. How about that? This person there and in their home, in their bedroom no less, had an encounter with an official gray. Down to the bulbous head, the gray skin, the big eyes. And it was so detailed that they could even see what they described as those squiggles and then specks in their eyes and so on. I mean, imagine that. Imagine waking up thinking everything is okay and then looking towards your left or your right and then seeing this thing right there. I don't know about you, but I'll be moving at that point. Like tomorrow, the day after, it doesn't matter. I'm moving, and there's nothing that would stop me at that point. But here in this case, it seemed like it was very peaceful. Here you have a situation where it saw him, he saw it, and then it just decided to make him go to sleep. And then there was nothing else really bad about it, at least nothing else that the user is going to remember, maybe for later on, who knows. But at the same time, they didn't have any fear, not like the fear that the user I was just mentioning in the other story had. But otherwise, short but sweet story when it comes to the bedroom visitor, how out of the blue this happened, including his theory that it's because they were thinking about grays or thinking about them in general. And that's what caused them to catch their interest. But that's pretty much it. That's all the stories associated with these 3 encounters. If anybody has any more info tied to this, maybe personal encounters that match, then please post those comments below. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.